Be advised that the views and opinions of the hosts and guests do not reflect those of the station.
Good morning, everyone. You're watching the Business Portal, your gateway to business trends and opportunities. Welcome to Pisobilities, live here on GNN. I'm Guita Gopalan of Colayco Foundation.
Cash, cold, that's what I need.
This is the show that discusses your ability to earn and manage your peso and the possibilities of making that same peso work for you, your Pisobilities. Our topic for this week is all about Jumpstarting 2014. So say goodbye to 2013 and welcome 2014. We are once again starting a new year, one with new challenges and new opportunities. So how can you make a fresh start? How can you reach your goals for this year? As we start the new year, we will also start this new segment in Pisobilities called One Wealthy Nation. This is a way for us to change up what we've been talking about in Pisobilities so that we can equip you with more knowledge, skills, and information about growing your money. So we discuss everything that has to do with a wonderful and wealthy life, from the material aspects as well as the not so material ones. From our spirit, our manners, our intellect, our health, our wealth, and everything else. So, is being wealthy something that you want to do, want to have, want to achieve for 2014? Or is it something that, you don't so much care about? Well, today's episode will talk about the 12 things you can do this year, one thing for each month of the year, wherein we discuss and find out ano ba yung mga pwede natin gawin so that we can have a wealthy and wonderful life this 2014. So in Jumpstarting 2014, we in Colayco Foundation want to, start building wealth one Filipino at a time. And one thing we have to ask ourselves is, where do we want to go? Do we go back to square one? Do we move forwards towards success? Or do we, slink back towards failure? So, saan mo ba gustong pumunta? Ano bang gusto mong patunguan? Where do you want to go? This is the first and most basic question that you have to ask for yourself. In our journey to be wealthy, kailangan natin pag-isipan, pagmunihan, ano ba talaga ang pakay natin? Because wealth is very personal. Each one of us has their own plan to be wealthy, their own wealth goals, their own strategies for achieving that wealth. And it all doesn't happen at one single time. So, please discuss amongst yourselves, your spouse, your family, where do you want to go? In building wealth, in doing something new this 2014, what we've done in the past won't work. Kung paulit-ulit po natin gagawin kung ano na yung dati nating nagawa, ano na yung dati nating ginagawa, at gagawin po natin ulit at wala pa rin po tayong mapapala. Because if we want to achieve something new, something different this 2014, we have to start doing something new. Now, let me share with you some tips po on what we can do every month of the year this 2014 to improve our financial life. The very first thing for January. Sana labas natin yung ating image, no? For January. Alright. For January, after asking yourself where you want to go and identifying what new things you can do, this January, you can follow your money. So this 2014, sana hindi na natin kailangan habulin pa or magmuni-muni pa kung saan napupunta yung pera natin. Sana we know exactly where our money goes. So to be able to do that, we need to follow our money. What does this mean? For every centavo that goes into our pockets and every centavo that goes out of our pockets, sana at dapat alam natin kung saan ito nanggagaling at saan ito papunta. For every peso that we spend, we should know and have allotted and tracked where we spent it on. Whether that was just a piece of candy or even just, something that we gave on a to a beggar on the streets. So, kailangan po alam natin kung saan yung mga pumupunta yung pera na yan. Now, how can you do that? There are, of course, your cell phones. Pwede natin gumawa ng notes. I-note natin, 8 pesos para sa jeep, 100 pesos for gasoline or whatever. Lalagay po natin yon. Pwede rin po natin i-tabulate yan sa mga spreadsheet sa ating computer. Pwede rin pong ganon. Pwede sa simpleng notebook, gamit ang papel at ballpen lang, natatrack na natin yung pera dyan. Ang mahalaga po with tracking our money is knowing exactly where it goes. Knowing exactly how much we're spending on different things. Because most of the time, we feel like we don't have money, we don't have anything left over when the month is over, habang inaantay na natin yung susunod na sweldo. But the reality is, marami po tayong nakakaligtaan na pinagagastusan pala natin. Hindi natin inaasahan na ang laki na pala yung ginastos natin for things that we don't really need. So following your money, especially this January, is one really, really good way to start assessing whether we are spending our money right. Ideally, you continue following your money all throughout your financial life because this helps you keep on track on whether you're spending in the right way. Now, nobody can dictate whether you're spending rightly or wrongly, but really that's up to you. Ang mahalaga po, the things that we need are met and the things that we want, we can work towards. Now, this coming February, approximately 30 plus days from now, you can start now looking at assessing how much you are worth today. So this February, know how much exactly you are worth. Have your own statement of assets, liabilities, and net worth. Ngayon, kung nagsusubaybay kayo sa mga balita last year, matunog na matunog po yan, yung SALN na tinatawag. Hindi lang po yan para sa mga government officials. Ideally, each person should have their own statement of assets and liabilities that determines how much they are worth financially speaking. Ano ba ang nasa statement of assets and liabilities and net worth? Dito po nakalista or nakatala yung ating pagmamay-ari at saka yung ating pinagkakautangan. So on one side, let's say you have a sheet of bond paper, fold it in half. On the left side, you put a list of everything that you own that has value that somebody else will buy from you. So ano ba yung mga bagay na inyo? Ano yung mga bagay na bibilhin sa inyo, may halaga, at bibilhin sa iyo ng ibang tao. So for example, ang mga usual po na nilalagay dyan sa assets column is yung ating bahay or property, real estate, mga sasakyan, alahas, sa iba, appliances sa bahay, damit, etc. So ano ba yung mga things that of value that people will buy from you? You list all of that there. Okay? Pero kailangan po, sa inyo po yun. So, kung pagmamayari po ng iba, hindi po nyo ilalagay doon kasi sa iba po yun. So, for example, if yung ating real estate ay hindi pa po nakapangalan sa atin or sa ating mag-asawa, dapat po, hindi po natin isasama yon. So, if it still belongs to your mother or your sister or your brother, sa kanila po nakapangalan yon. So, hindi po natin sinasama sa ating statement of assets and liabilities. So, lahat po ng ating assets, ililista po natin kung ano po ito at ano yung halaga niya. Now, values can differ. So, depending on what the specific asset is, you can check ano yung mga current values niya. So, for example, pag tinasabi natin mga bank accounts or deposit accounts, titignan lang natin kung ano yung balance natin. Yun na yung value doon. Pag naman mga real estate, you can check out what is the prevailing market price for selling that kind of property. Hindi naman po kailangang saktong-sakto ito, basta it shows you and gives you a good idea or a good picture of where you are in your financial life and the value of that particular asset. So in the case of other belongings inside the home, then you should adjust. You should not put there how much you bought something. Like let's say, kung yung TV po ninyo, ililista nyo as an asset, hindi po buying price ang nilalagay dyan. Kundi, magkano yung presyo na maaring bilhin ng ibang tao mula sa inyo. So for example, kung 25,000 po yung ating TV, hindi na po sigurado ninyo maibebenta ng 25,000 yung TV dahil nagamit nyo na ito. Kumbaga, second hand na to eh. So, baka kailangan mga 18,000 na lang yan or 15,000, depende sa klase, uri, at condition ng mga assets na ito. So, list all these things along together with the values and then total them. This will give you a good picture of your total assets. Ngayon, on the right side of your sheet, dito naman, ililista natin yung mga liabilities natin. Dito po, nakalagay po lahat ng pinagkakautangan natin. So, identify who are the people or institutions that you owe money to. Housing loan, personal loan, credit cards, cooperative loans, etc. So, ilista po natin yon. Tapos, katabi po nun, ililista natin kung ano yung current na balance po ng ating mga pinagkakautangan. So, dito po, bawas na po kung ano man yung nabayad natin up to the point of when we are making our statement of assets and liabilities. After totaling all your liabilities, you will now have the two components you need to determine your net worth. Ang net worth po is simply assets minus liabilities. Dito po, makukuha ninyo kung ano yung netong halaga natin. Now, if it's positive, then you're in a good position. Ibig sabihin, kung ano yung pagmamay-ari natin, natatapatan yung mga pinagkakautangan natin. Ngayon, kung negative naman, ibig sabihin, kailangan po natin magpursige para bawasan yung ating mga pinagkakautangan. Now, if your assets equal your liabilities, then you're still in a good position, at least in the sense that you have assets enough to cover your liabilities. But if not careful, maaring yung mga interest na ating mga liabilities lumaki and our total obligations grow and then hindi na po nasa tama. So ideally, mas malaki po sana yung assets natin. Kasi pag lumalaki po yung assets natin, yun po yung nagde-determine na tayo ay talagang yumayaman. Now, the Pera Mo Palaguin Mo workbook, ito pong libro na to, has more information about preparing and creating your statement of assets and liabilities. Very detailed po ang guide na yan. So, maaari po ninyong i-check out yon. You can also check franciscocolayco.com for an online version of our statement of assets and liabilities. Now, your statement of assets and liabilities is something that you should do every year. So, later on, the next year, titingnan po natin kung ano naman yung naging progress natin. More on that in a little while. Come March, pagdating naman po sa March, panahon naman ho siguro, alam na natin kung magkano yung ginagastos natin from January to February, medyo may idea na tayo and hopefully nagkaroon na tayo ng changes or adjustments sa ating paggastos, kaya na dapat at sana nating mag-save. Now, most people start saving in a not so right way. Tinuturo po kasi sa atin habang bata tayo na kung ano yung matira sa ginastos natin, yun po itatabi natin. But it's not the right way and it's not the most effective way to save. The best way to save is to follow this equation. Income less savings equals expenses. So set a target amount and then set it aside before you spend. Savings should be your first expense because it's an expense that buys your future. Ito pong gastusin na to, itong savings, ito po yung ginagamit natin to meet our unforeseen circumstances pag may mga nagkasakit. It's also what we use to meet our obligations, especially for the education of our children and our aspirations. Kung gusto natin mag-fly around the world, bisitahin lahat ng lugar, kung gusto natin magkaroon ng kung ano-anong mga gadgets, dito rin ho yan ang gagaling eh. And most importantly, for later on when we are in our old age, to prepare for our retirement. So savings is the primary capital for building wealth. There is no way to start building wealth without savings. Kailangan po may puhunan tayo. And financially speaking, that's where savings come in. Because when you have savings, then you have something to start with. Meron po tayong pang-invest. Whether you use that to invest in something like a business, or stocks, or mutual funds, or insurance investment products, etc. But you need to have money. Hindi po nanggagaling sa kung saan-saan lang ang kayamanan kung hindi tayo magpupuhunan. This coming April, now you can look at seriously assessing your spending habits. By then, you will have had 3 months worth of financial tracking. Yung ating inumpisahan ng January na follow your money, by April, meron na tayo isang buong quarter na records or data about following our money. So, seriously assess your spending habits. Kasi panahon na po ito para alamin at talagang maging seryoso sa pag-a-adjust ng ating spending. If you really want to be wealthy, there is time and effort that is needed to be able to determine how best you can use your money. And with the data that you've gathered from following your money, you can then make the decision to retain, reduce, or eliminate certain expenses. And then, for those things, you can use the money in a better way. What do you retain? There is no right or wrong answer here. Depende po yan sa inyong sariling spending plan at lifestyle. So, iisipin po natin, titingnan po natin yung mga pinagagastusan natin. Ano ba dito yung talagang mga mahahalaga? No? Ideally, you should put your needs first. Before any of the wants, before any of the luxuries, unahin po natin yung needs natin. Yung pinaka-basic po na pangangailangan. Food, clothing, shelter, the education of your children, the primary obligations that you have. Those should be retained. But if you have excess, kung medyo sobra naman po yung pera natin, there are some monies that you can still choose, some expenses that you can still choose to continue and retain because they add some value to your life. Kailangan lang po mahalaga. No? So you can choose to retain those expenses. Now, there are some of those expenses that you can reduce in certain ways. One is by switching brands. Tingnan natin kung yung brands na binibili natin, baka naman merong comparable in value and quality, but at a cheaper price. So, marami po dyan kasi merong mga nakasanayan lang po natin na brand o ginagamit na ng mga nanay natin, mga tatay natin, napasa na sa atin, ginagamit pa rin natin. But yet, they're not necessarily the only good quality brand. So, you might want to check, no? This can go from like household items, yung mga ginagamit po natin sa pangluto, ginagamit po nating personal like toothpaste, shampoo, etc. You can check out these things. No? And determine whether you can reduce them in price by switching brands. You can also check if you can reduce certain things by literally cutting out the expense, no? Kung lagi kayo, every week kayong magpamilya na lumalabas, nagmo-mall, nagre-restaurant, nagpa-fast food, baka pwedeng gawing kalahati na lang, 2 times a month na lang tayo lumalabas, papunta sa mall. You can then channel some of those money to something else, no? Baka may mga mas creative na way para magsamahan ng mga pamilya na hindi gumagastos ng ganong kalaki. And lastly, you can choose to eliminate it altogether. Some expenses are really not needed, especially in a regular basis. So, pwede po nating tanggalin mismo yung expense na yun at hindi na paggastusan. Again, the decision to reduce, retain, and eliminate certain expenses, that is all up to you and your family. Pag-usapan po ninyo yan kung ano po yung mga dapat nating gawin tungkol sa ating pera. But our money is within our control. So, ideally, spend on the most important things like saving, your needs, food, etc. When we come back, we'll talk about tips for May, June, July, August, September, October, November, and December. So, we've only begun the year and we still have a lot to talk about. Pisobilities will be back after this short break. Don't touch that remote.